Morena te whānau. I hope you're all having a wonderful Wednesday. It is Wednesday. Can confirm it is Wednesday, the 15th of April. It is day 21 of our level 4 lockdown of Aorahui across this country, which brings us to the start of week 3. Congrats to all of you across the country who have done such an incredible job in working together to eliminate this virus. Yesterday we had a really stark reminder of why this is so important and the things that are at stake. Those are, of course, the lives of other New Zealanders and particularly of our most vulnerable. Yesterday we heard news of the highest death toll that we have seen per day in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We lost 4 lives, bringing our total amount of New Zealanders who have been lost to COVID-19 to 9. Simultaneously, we have seen some really unusual, well, not quite unusual, I mean, it was kind of always expected. There's always a multiplicity of views on what we should be doing. But some calls from some folks who fancy themselves experts on the need to go back to quote-unquote normal as soon as possible. I think they're calling themselves Plan B. I can't remember. But long story short, they're essentially using the argument that our lockdown has worked so effectively that we should stop the lockdown. And this is a really dangerous argument to be circulating at present, because not only is it flawed and a straw man in terms of stating that we've done this so effectively, so therefore we should stop doing it, but it's also coming at a time where they are utilising the argument that our most vulnerable are vulnerable and going to die anyway. It's really quite problematic the further that you dig into it. So just really want to applaud all of you who are doing your bits, who are staying home, saving lives and squashing that curve. And also, as always, to shout out to all of our incredible essential workers who are keeping our country functioning. It is for all of you that we are continuing to stay at home to make your jobs easier and to make sure that we can get this lockdown alert level 4 lifted as soon as possible. Morena to a bunch of people who are checking in. I hope that you're all having a great day. Cheers, Donald. It is really important to take this stuff on. I'm always trapped between a rock and a hard place with it, right? In that by confronting this kind of misinformation and this campaigning of those who are seeking to spread fear, obfuscation and doubt, we can oftentimes, particularly as progressors, end up accidentally spreading that information. And all of the research shows that folks typically don't remember whether you had a positive or a negative frame around the stuff that you were talking about. They just remember the core bits of information. So this is why we should never spread misinformation or seek to myth bust when we're just actually giving greater platform to the work or the news which is problematic or not necessarily containing a granule of truth. But anyway, I do think it's important that we continue to reinforce all of the mahi that all of us have been undertaking in order to protect particularly our most at-risk New Zealanders. And I, for one, am not willing to sit aside and allow people to just say, oh, well, they were going to die anyway. It's just mind-blowing. So this is a reminder of what's at stake. Remember that we need to continue keeping on this track. We need to stay this path. We need to squash this curve. We need to eliminate COVID-19 in order for all of us to return to the outside world, start interacting and connecting with each other once again. As Jack is saying, bosses want the economy open so that workers can get back to work for them. It's almost as though workers make all the profits for bosses. In fact, that is the case, Jack. Workers are profit generators. And what this is meaning is that all of us, again, have this opportunity here to re-envision our future. So I also this morning in our brief daily check-ins at 8 every morning, Morena Janelle, we just need to discuss, because it has received quite a bit of prominence across social media, the student support package that was announced yesterday. It's important to note that this is the first step. It is, from my understanding and speaking to the Minister of Education, the Honourable Chris Hipkins, that this was what was able to be undertaken immediately for those with urgent need. We know that students, and this is definitely something that I have heard across the country loud and clear, but particularly under this lockdown, are in increasingly precarious situations, are primarily renters and are primarily operating in the gig economy, many loading extra hours of work on top of their more than 40 hours of study a week in order to simply survive. So to be really clear, here's what was in the package that was announced yesterday. There were 3 things. The first was to help cover extra costs by increasing the student loan amount available for course-related costs for full-time students. That's important. It's only for full-time students, from $1,000 to $2,000 on a temporary basis. Secondly, to continue support payments for students unable to study online for up to 8 weeks. And thirdly, the third part is in 2, to make technical changes to ensure that where students receive partial tuition fee refunds in 2020 because their course has been discontinued due to COVID-19, this will not affect their future entitlement to student loans. So that's changes around the EFTS cap, or the equivalent full-time study cap. And B, where students are unable to complete a course of study in 2020 due to COVID-19, this will not affect their entitlement to fees-free tertiary study. Obviously, the most common form of feedback that I've received on this point is that the only immediate form of relief is that opportunity to get oneself in greater debt, the doubling of the course-related costs and the ability to take that out. And on this point, it is really, really critical for us to understand that right now it is really easy to throw stones. It is really easy to tear things down. And in fact, it can be quite cathartic to do so, especially because this is such a stressful time for all of us. It is far harder to propose solutions and to work together to build a better future. And that is exactly our task, folks. While this first package is evidently, resoundingly not enough, particularly for the students that I am hearing from, what it presents in the fact that there is definitely going to be a second round of support is the requirement for all of us right now to work together to come up with broad unity, a broad coalition where we agree on the mandate that has to be given to Chris Hipkins, the Minister of Education, for the next student support package. So this is really, really important. We need to work together to build that mandate for what comes next. We cannot just throw stones, tear things down, because again, as it might be cathartic, it doesn't actually offer us a pathway to a better future. So what I also want to say is that I think all of this comes down to, and the reason that we've ended up with the so-called support package that we have, and I've addressed this in former lives, particularly the very long rant that I gave probably on Friday or Saturday. It's all in the somewhere on my Facebook page. Within the videos section, I've collated all of these different live streams every day for you. So if you are interested in going back and having a look at it. But the mythology around being a student, that being theoretically that it is a rite of passage to experience poverty, that this poverty is somehow temporary. And it was put best to me when I was going around the universities a while ago, about a year ago, exploring particularly tertiary mental health. And someone said that, there's this expectation that students are broke for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden we're not broke. But the problem is that Speaking about broke implies that it's this transient state, that it's something that you are and something that you're not. But the problem with poverty, and particularly with debt, is that it is a trap. It is a weight that you carry around your neck, and it is very difficult to rise to new heights and to climb the ladder that education is supposed to enable you to if you have that weight around your neck. And again, it's that reality that study and education actually helps all of us, not just the individual who is undertaking that study. The example that I gave the other day is I had acute appendicitis and all of this gross stuff spilling out into my guts, and didn't die because of the education of a medical health professional. We walk into buildings and we cross bridges and we are conscious that they're not going to collapse. In fact, it doesn't even enter our consciousness. And we take for granted the education and the quality and the standards of the education of those who produced those pieces of infrastructure. We take for granted the way that our legal system operates. We take for granted the way that our banking system operates. We take for granted the very devices that we are using at present to communicate with each other during this time of alert level 4 lockdown. There is no such thing as one isolated genius who has come up with the history of the world's information and data and science and research and analytics all by themselves. We all build on each other's work, and that is the value of an accessible education. Education is a passport. It enables all of us to grasp new opportunities, and I personally believe, and the Greens personally believe, that it is your entitlement as a citizen. It is something that enables you to continue moving forward, and debt is a weight around your neck. So that's what we will continue advocating for. And I agree, Thomas, loans aren't support. They are life's uncertainty for students means there's no definite way of looking at taking on more debt to be offset by employment. Look, team, this is where all of us need to work together. That's basically the message from today, right? Whether we're continuing to unpack that stuff that I was talking about at the top with folks who are saying, hey, look, our lockdown's working, so we need to come out of lockdown. Unfortunately, guys, that's exactly why the lockdown is working, because all of us are staying in lockdown. But we had a real stark reminder of why this is so important with the loss of 4 New Zealanders yesterday. We need to continue staying this course, and we need to continue abiding by the rules that we have created to eliminate COVID-19. And in that same way, I think that we're all sticking by the rules to eliminate COVID-19. As we come out of this, we can expect corporations and everybody else to play by the new rules that we instigate to eliminate inequality. So remember, education's a passport, but in order to recognise those rights and those freedoms that all of us have as citizens, we are going to have to work together to build that broad mandate. We are going to have to come together and build solutions. And I will continue working particularly with the New Zealand University Students Association and the 42 other polytech and tertiary associations that came together to produce a document of requests to the government. I will circulate that in the comments below. This is stuff that it's really important. If you want to see it happen, you need to socialise it, right? Politics doesn't happen in a vacuum, and if you are frustrated by the way that politics is playing out right now, you need to not decide to switch off, because if you switch off, you give excuses for the status quo to continue. If you want change, you need to have your voice heard. So share this document by New Zealand University Students Association. Speak about the importance of education as a passport to move all of us forward and to continue the development of our society, particularly as we come out the other side of COVID-19 and seek to reset and rebuild a new economy that works for all of us. But also continue to build that mandate. Build a new future, don't just throw stones. Again, it might be real cathartic, it might feel good, but it's not going to help us build a future, guys. I hope that you're all having a beautiful day. Jean is saying get out and vote too. It's not just about voting. Politics doesn't just happen every 3 years with a general election. Decisions made literally every single day. And this is why, as much as you can, please take stake in your future. As I've said many times before, if you don't like your politicians, all of them are there either because you voted for them or you neglected to vote for an alternative. And things can change in between every 3 years of a general election. You can bring forward stuff like a petition, and it has to be heard before your House of Parliament. I'm more than happy to explain how that works in future. You can also submit on select committees on any piece of law you like, and you can obviously contact MPs and lobby them. The thing that I'm doing right now and talking to all of you, I'm just one of 120 members of Parliament. But that is some pretty ace access, right? That's something we can't take for granted here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And we need to continue working with each other. We need to continue advocating for that access and advocating for change. I think that's us. I hope that you're all going to have a beautiful day 21. Remember to stay home, to squash this curve and to save lives and to be kind. As I always say, even though the old mate who sent me an email, by the way, for those who are responding to that brilliant screenshot that I put up on my Facebook the other day, I only chucked that up because I thought that it was funny. I receive a number of far more intense emails, as anybody who occupies a public platform does. But I just thought that the nasty piece of human butter was just by far the best insult that I've ever received. And I thought we all deserved a laugh, team. In terms of, Shari's asking, can you please give some more advice around student study needs at this point? Shari, there's a lot of things that I've said throughout this live stream which you'll be able to replay after it's finished. But also I will be chucking in the comments below after this live stream is ended how all of you can continue to engage and to build the mandate for better changes moving forward. And I'll also be really clear on what the package was that was announced yesterday, but also what we're going to have to work on moving forward, because as we all know, there is a second package coming. We've got to make sure that that is as progressive, as supportive, and as universal as possible, because we know that we don't work towards a more equitable future by undercutting it and placing more weight around its neck in the form of debt. All right, stay safe, team. Be kind, especially to yourselves. Catch you tomorrow at 8:10.